After the divorce, ex-wife marries a billionaire with her baby, teams up for the ultimate revenge. From heartbreak to hidden secrets, from revenge to an unexpected vow, this is the story of a woman who found the strength to reclaim her life on her own terms. When Alyssa Brooks parted ways with her powerful CEO husband, Evan Coleman, she never imagined the chain of events that would follow. Yet destiny had other plans, leading her into the opulent world of an enigmatic billionaire, Robert Hutchinson. What began as betrayal soon transformed into a harrowing odyssey of second chances, revenge, and redemption. Buckle up and prepare to be swept away as the drama unfolds in this poignant tale of resilience, hope, and the unpredictable twists of love. Alyssa Brooks stared blankly at the final divorce papers, her signature scrawled at the bottom in an ink that seemed to cry out with heartbreak. Just 3 years ago, she had walked down the aisle in a fairy tale wedding, convinced she was stepping into a life of endless happiness with Evan Coleman. Back then, Evan was more than a promising entrepreneur. He was a brilliant visionary on the cusp of building a powerful empire. She had fallen in love not just with his ambition, but also with the warmth she believed lay beneath his cool, confident exterior. Yet the moment his business soared, everything about him seemed to change. Late nights at the office turned into late nights at exclusive clubs, while sweet whispers of affection morphed into curt demands and bitter arguments. Their once harmonious home grew silent with tension until it finally collapsed under the weight of mistrust. The final straw came when Alyssa discovered she was pregnant. In that fragile moment, instead of supporting her, Evan insisted she take care of it, as though the child they had created was nothing but a pesky inconvenience. Horrified and heartbroken, Alyssa refused. She watched the man she once admired transform into a ruthless figure who valued nothing beyond the bottom line. That day, a part of her shattered irreparably, and with newfound resolve, she packed her belongings and left. She took refuge in a modest apartment in downtown Boston, not far from her longtime friend, Michelle Carter, a single mother juggling her own challenges. As Alyssa walked away from the penthouse that had once symbolized her dreams, she realized her life would never be the same. And perhaps that was exactly what she needed. News of their divorce circulated through Boston's high society circles faster than wildfire. Once deemed the city's most promising power couple, they had become a cautionary tale of how wealth and ambition could corrode even the most ardent love. Most people had no clue what truly went on behind closed doors. Evan's manipulative control, the nights Alyssa spent crying herself to sleep, the unborn child whose presence was overshadowed by financial projections and corporate buyouts. In a city that thrived on gossip, rumors painted Alyssa as a gold digger desperate to cling to Evan's meteoric rise. She tried to dismiss the whispers, but each vicious claim cut her deeply. Yet her priority was clear: protect her baby at all costs and carve out a fresh start, regardless of how bleak the path seemed. Despite the heartbreak, Alyssa discovered an unexpected source of solace in her pregnancy. The notion of a new life growing inside her softened the edges of despair, filling her with a fierce determination. She took a freelance writing job for a local magazine, focusing on heartfelt human interest stories. The work allowed her to earn an income from the privacy of her small apartment, a sanctuary away from prying eyes. Writing had always been her secret refuge. Now it was her lifeline. Though her finances were meager, each carefully budgeted grocery trip and every piece of second-hand baby gear represented a victory of independence. She didn't need Evan's wealth to survive. All she needed was her own willpower and the unspoken promise she made to protect the little one inside her. Meanwhile, Evan's empire continued its meteoric ascent, garnering accolades for cutting-edge products and visionary partnerships. Business publications celebrated him as one of Boston's most influential CEOs, a man with the Midas touch. Every time Alyssa caught a glimpse of his face on magazine covers or listened to a news report lauding his recent merger, she felt a complicated surge of anger and nostalgia. She reminded herself daily that she had made the right choice in leaving. The bitterness was a constant reminder of the betrayal she had endured. Little did she know, her path would soon intersect with a new influence, an unexpected figure who would rewrite the trajectory of her life and transform heartbreak into a surprising chance at love. On a bitterly cold Tuesday afternoon, Alyssa braved the wind as she hopped off the bus near Boston Common. Wrapped in a thick coat that did little to ward off the chill, she clutched a slim folder of resumes. She had her eye on a potential research assistant position at the local historical society. Though her freelance writing was fulfilling, the pay was erratic, and with her baby's due date inching closer, she needed steadier income. As she carefully navigated the slippery sidewalk, she nearly collided with a tall, striking man stepping out of a glossy black town car. Her heart lurched in momentary fright, but she steadied herself in time to apologize. He greeted her with a subtle smile, his deep blue eyes conveying warmth. Only after he walked on did she realize she had recognized him, Robert Hutchinson, the reclusive billionaire philanthropist whose recent charitable donations had made national headlines. Robert Hutchinson's name was synonymous with opulence and secrecy. He was said to have been a relentless deal-maker in his earlier years, though tragedy had allegedly changed him, softening his edges. As he paused to help Alyssa steady herself on the icy pavement, she found herself caught off guard by how down-to-earth he seemed, nothing like the distant, larger-than-life figure the tabloids depicted. "Are you all right?" he asked, his low voice resonating with concern. Flustered, Alyssa nodded, feeling a strange sense of reassurance from this man she barely knew. She murmured her thanks and moved on, determined to stay focused on her job hunt rather than dwell on a random, if intriguing, run-in with a billionaire. Yet fate had other plans. Minutes later, as she climbed the icy steps leading to the Historical Society building, Alyssa's foot slipped. She flailed for balance, bracing for what would surely be a painful fall. Instead, she felt firm arms catch her just in time. Heat rushed to her cheeks as she realized she had been saved from face-planting on the stone steps by none other than Robert Hutchinson once again. "We really must stop meeting like this," he teased, his tone gentle, eyes sparkling with a hint of amusement. The embarrassment and the lingering ache in Alyssa's back from the slip momentarily overwhelmed her. She murmured a polite thanks, uneasy about having twice been rescued in such quick succession. Ever the gentleman, Robert asked if she needed further help, especially after noticing her expectant figure. Despite her pride, something about his sincerity disarmed her. When he learned she was there to apply for a research role, he casually mentioned his philanthropic ties to the society. He had donated a significant sum for renovations the previous year and offered to introduce her to the curator. Alyssa hesitated, torn between pride and practicality. She had resolved not to rely on powerful men again, but the possibility of even a small advantage in securing a job was too great to dismiss. She swallowed her reservations and accepted, quietly telling herself it was just an introduction, no strings attached. Inside the stately marble foyer of the Historical Society, Robert greeted Dr. Frederick Dawson, the curator. Dr. Dawson's eyes lit up upon seeing the billionaire and widened further when Robert introduced Alyssa as a talented researcher and writer. Though surprised, Dr. Dawson appeared intrigued by Alyssa's freelance portfolio. He reviewed her credentials and asked her to leave her resume. While he made no immediate promises, he assured her he would be in touch soon. As they exited, Robert handed Alyssa his business card, suggesting she call him if she needed anything or simply to update him on her progress. She slipped the card into her pocket, feeling a blend of gratitude and something akin to confusion. Would she ever see this mysterious, generous man again? A faint ripple of intuition told her their paths had only just begun to intertwine. A week after her unexpected meeting with Robert, Alyssa's phone buzzed during a mundane moment of struggling with her snug maternity jeans. To her surprise, Dr. Dawson offered her a part-time position at the Historical Society, digitizing archives, drafting short articles for exhibitions, and supporting ongoing research. Though the hours were limited, the pay was steady, providing her a much-needed sense of security. When she hung up the call, her gaze landed on Robert Hutchinson's business card perched near the kitchen sink. She had hesitated to reach out, wary of seeming presumptuous. A quiet voice inside also warned her about powerful men who could upend her world. Yet she couldn't ignore his kindness, or the way he had looked at her as though her well-being truly mattered. Acting on impulse, she dialed his number. He answered almost instantly, greeting her by name, as though he had been waiting for the call. She thanked him for the introduction, explaining she had been offered the job. To her surprise, Robert sounded genuinely pleased, and before she could second-guess herself, she accepted his invitation to lunch the following day. He suggested a cozy bistro by the Charles River, far from the usual business crowd. Though anxious about the implications, Alyssa's curiosity got the better of her. She reasoned a friendly lunch was harmless. It wasn't as if she was jumping into anything romantic. The bistro was charming, with exposed brick walls decorated by black and white photographs of Boston's past. Robert was seated by a window when Alyssa arrived, a small bouquet of fresh daisies on the table. "These are for you, and for the baby," he said with a gentle smile that made her heart warm. Over steaming bowls of clam chowder, they talked about everything from the intricacies of historical architecture to Robert's non-profit interests. Alyssa noticed how different he was from Evan. Where Evan had monopolized every conversation, hungry to prove his brilliance, Robert asked about her life, her passions, and how she was handling her pregnancy. She found herself opening up more than she intended, sharing her uncertainties about the future, her modest freelance gigs, and her fierce determination to provide a loving home for her child. Still, Alyssa stopped short whenever thoughts of Evan surfaced. She couldn't bear to delve into the painful details of her marriage just yet, not when she was relishing this rare moment of normalcy. Whether Robert sensed her discomfort or simply believed in giving her space, he shifted the conversation whenever darkness crept into her eyes. By the end of lunch, she felt surprisingly uplifted. Robert insisted on paying, his quiet confidence making it feel less like an extravagant gesture and more like a simple courtesy. When they parted on the chilly sidewalk, Robert thanked her for joining him. "If you need anything," he said softly, "or even just want to talk, I'm here." She clutched the daisies close, warmth following her long after his sleek car disappeared from view. In the weeks that followed, Alyssa threw herself into her new responsibilities at the Historical Society. Her tasks included sorting through dusty archival boxes and crafting short write-ups about colonial-era artifacts. Despite the low pay, she relished the steady rhythm and the sense of purpose it gave her. With each page she flipped through and each artifact she catalogued, she saw how every moment in history was a story, an echo left behind by people who had once struggled, hoped and survived. She clung to that inspiration, reminding herself that her own hardships were just one chapter in a longer narrative. During this time, she exchanged light-hearted texts with Robert, discussing local museum exhibits and community fundraisers. Each message felt like a small but precious note, a subtle thread weaving them closer. As winter's frost gradually melted into the promise of spring, Alyssa allowed herself a tiny spark of hope. Maybe, just maybe, life was steering her toward a future where heartbreak was not the end of the story, but rather the beginning of something new and profound. One bright afternoon, Alyssa was alone in the Historical Society's archive room, handling fragile antique maps, when her phone buzzed. She glanced at the caller ID and her stomach twisted. Evan Coleman. Ever since signing the divorce papers, their contact had been minimal and strictly formal. Her initial instinct was to ignore the call, but against her better judgment, she found herself answering. The moment she heard his composed, business-like tone, memories rushed back in a cruel wave. "Alyssa," he began, "we need to discuss the baby. I've consulted with my legal team, and we must work out a suitable arrangement." Her heart thumped in her chest. Over the past months, she had mentally prepared to raise the baby alone, never dreaming that Evan would suddenly want to be involved. Questions ricocheted through her mind. Why did he care now, after dismissing her so coldly before? In measured words, she explained that she was doing fine on her own. She neither needed nor desired his financial help, and if he was going to be emotionally absent, she preferred he stay out of their child's life altogether. But Evan responded with a calculated edge that made her skin crawl. "I'm not asking you to get back together," he clarified, "but I can't afford for the media or my investors to learn that I'm neglecting my responsibilities. My board expects me to address this." His callous frankness sliced through her more painfully than any insult could have. She realized with cold clarity that his sudden interest was about managing public perception, not about fatherly love. The conversation ended in a tense standoff, with Evan insinuating that his lawyers would finalize the details. Alyssa walked outside, her hands shaking. She leaned against the building's brick wall, struggling to catch her breath. She felt violated, as though her pregnancy had become a bargaining chip in yet another of Evan's business transactions. Later that night, while typing up a freelance article, Alyssa's thoughts kept drifting to Robert. He had offered his help if she ever needed it, yet how could she involve him in such a personal battle? They shared a budding friendship, maybe something deeper, but it felt too soon to drag him into the crosshairs of her conflict with Evan. Still, the idea of facing Evan's legal onslaught alone made her tremble. After hours of inner turmoil, she finally texted Robert. "Something urgent came up. Can we talk?" The phone rang almost immediately. Robert's concerned voice was like a lifeline. As she haltingly recounted Evan's demands, tears of frustration slipped unbidden down her cheeks. Robert listened quietly, only interrupting to clarify details. When she finished, he spoke with resolute calm. "You're not alone. I can introduce you to one of the best family lawyers in Boston, someone who won't be intimidated by high-powered executives." Reluctant as she was to rely on someone else, Alyssa could feel her reservations melting in the face of his genuine concern. She agreed, a surge of gratitude blending with a flicker of guilt. She had vowed never to place her trust in a powerful man again, yet Robert's steady reassurance comforted her in a way she didn't realize she desperately needed. Hanging up, she felt like she was stepping onto a precarious tightrope, unsure if she would reach the other side unscathed. Robert wasted no time arranging a meeting with Elizabeth Friedman, a highly regarded family law attorney with an impressive track record against influential adversaries. Alyssa arrived at Elizabeth's elegant, modern office the next day, the walls lined with law books and abstract art. With calm authority, Elizabeth explained the legal landscape. "Evan can assert his paternal rights, but he can't force you to accept his money," she said. "However, if he establishes paternity, he could also petition for visitation or shared custody." Hearing the words made Alyssa's stomach churn. The last thing she wanted was to witness her child being used as a PR strategy. Yet Elizabeth's composed demeanor offered a measure of solace. "I will protect your interests," the lawyer promised. "We can fight for sole custody if it comes to that." When Alyssa stepped out of the office, she was surprised to find Robert patiently waiting in the corridor. A soft sense of relief washed over her. She told him that Elizabeth seemed confident, but that the legalities were overwhelming. "I'm just glad you've got strong representation," Robert said, gently placing a hand on her shoulder before suggesting they grab a quick coffee at a quaint cafe nearby. Over cups of cappuccino, Alyssa found herself confiding her fears, of Evan's manipulations, of the possibility she could lose control over her child's future, of her creeping worry that her life was spinning out of her control. Robert listened quietly, a thoughtful furrow in his brow. Eventually, he spoke in a gentle voice. "I understand how isolating it is to face someone who wields so much power. But I promise you, Evan's influence doesn't extend everywhere. You have rights, and you have people who will stand by you." His sincere reassurance chipped away at her guarded heart. She realized with a start that she was beginning to trust him, a trust that felt both terrifying and exhilarating. The following weekend, Robert invited Alyssa to a children's hospital charity gala he was sponsoring. "You can see more of what I do," he said, almost shyly. Nerves fluttered in her stomach. She wasn't sure how she would fit into the high society circles that once revolved around Evan. Nonetheless, Robert's openness compelled her to say yes. That Saturday, she agonized over her outfit before settling on a simple black dress she'd worn to a friend's wedding years ago. Standing in front of her mirror, she smoothed the fabric over her pregnant belly. For a moment, she considered backing out, afraid she'd appear out of place. A reassuring text from Robert, "I'm downstairs, no rush," propelled her forward. They arrived at the grand ballroom of the Fairmont Copley Plaza, where glittering chandeliers cast a warm glow on the marble floors. Robert introduced Alyssa to business leaders, doctors and philanthropists, crediting her passion for historical research. She found them surprisingly welcoming, less concerned with her past than with her present capabilities and insights. At one point, a gentle waltz played, and Robert extended his hand, leading her to the dance floor. They moved slowly to accommodate her growing belly, and Alyssa felt an unexpected sense of belonging. Away from the swirling crowd, they slipped onto a private balcony. Soft city lights illuminated the intensity in Robert's gaze. "Alyssa," he began quietly, "I can't pretend to understand everything you've been through, but I know you deserve better. You're strong, devoted, and you make me want to be better too." She felt her eyes glisten with tears. His words were gentle, honest, devoid of any agenda beyond caring for her. His next words left her breathless. "I want to be part of your life, and your baby's life, if you'll have me." Overcome by a tsunami of emotions, Alyssa couldn't immediately speak. She offered the only response she could, her voice thick with both fear and gratitude. I need time to think." With a tender smile, Robert nodded, drawing her into a soft embrace under the shimmering Boston skyline. Alyssa's mind reeled in the days following Robert's confession. She could still feel the warmth of his arms, the sincerity in his voice. Yet the ghosts of her past refused to let her rest. She remembered how she once believed Evan's promises of love and unending devotion, only to have him disregard her the moment his career soared. Now here she was again, with another powerful man offering a future. Was she repeating her mistakes, or had she found someone genuinely different? She continued coordinating with Elizabeth, who escalated the legal measures against Evan's attempts at controlling the narrative. Tensions heightened when Evan's attorneys demanded a paternity test and hinted at a subpoena for Alyssa's medical records. Day after day, phone calls and emails rattled her nerves. She tried to stay strong for the baby's sake, but the stress piled up, invading her dreams. One afternoon she stepped out of Elizabeth's office, exhausted and fearful. Noticing a missed call from Robert, she returned it. His voice, calm and resolute, brought instant relief. "I'm here," he said. "We'll face this together." She clung to those words like a lifeline. Then, as though orchestrated by destiny, an old friend reached out. Michelle Carter, who had first helped Alyssa find a modest downtown apartment, worked as an assistant event planner. She confessed in a strained whisper that she'd just been hired for a high-profile corporate gala, one hosted by Evan's firm. "And he specifically asked if you'd be attending," Michelle said. "It's a huge event, a celebration of a big merger." Alyssa's stomach twisted. Why would Evan want her there? Surely it was a PR play, a chance to present a united front or manipulate perceptions. Michelle's concern was clear. "I just thought you should know," she concluded, her voice serious. "Watch your back." That evening, Alyssa recounted the news to Robert, who listened with a pensive frown. After a moment of thought, he surprised her by suggesting she attend. "He's expecting you to stay away, or to show up alone and vulnerable," Robert reasoned. "Show him you're not under his control, and you won't be alone. I'll be there." Nervous energy buzzed through her. The idea of walking into Evan's territory, visibly pregnant with his child, and on the arm of another wealthy man, felt both terrifying and empowering. Still, a rebellious spark flared in her chest. Maybe this was precisely what she needed, to prove to herself and to Evan that she would no longer be silenced or overshadowed. The night of the gala arrived in a blur of nerves. Alyssa settled on a flowing emerald gown that draped elegantly over her pronounced belly. She refused to hide the reality of her pregnancy. Robert arrived in a limousine, his usual warm smile replaced by a quiet intensity. As they arrived at the opulent hotel, camera flashes and murmuring reporters greeted them outside. Robert rested a protective hand on her lower back, guiding her through the press of onlookers. Inside, the ballroom sparkled with polished marble floors and gold-trimmed pillars. Evan was visible at the center of the room, flanked by a circle of corporate admirers, their eyes locked in a charged instant. Alyssa steeled herself, refusing to shrink under his gaze. She soon felt the weight of curious stares on her back. Some recognized her from her days by Evan's side, others whispered about the pregnancy. But with Robert at her side, she found it easier to breathe. He made introductions, steering conversations toward her interests and achievements rather than old gossip. Yet from the corner of her eye, she saw Evan prowling through the crowd like a hunter, greeting investors and laughing with a polished ease. Though she struggled to maintain her composure, she refused to appear timid. Eventually, Evan approached, wineglass in hand. He nodded curtly at Robert before turning his attention to Alyssa. "You look radiant," he said, the word laced with tension. Sensing her unease, Robert stepped in just enough to signal his support. Evan insisted they speak privately. Alyssa reluctantly agreed, not wanting a public confrontation. In a quiet corridor, Robert stood a short distance away, poised to intervene if necessary. Evan wasted no time, informing her that the company board knew of her pregnancy and expected him to address the situation. His tone was icy, his words carefully measured. "I'm prepared to offer financial support, generous support, in exchange for your cooperation," he said. The look in his eyes told her exactly what he meant. His reputation had to remain untarnished. Anger seared through Alyssa. She informed Evan she already had legal representation and that she refused to sell the rights to her child's life for corporate convenience. Though her voice trembled, she refused to back down. Evan's composure cracked, a spark of fury flaring in his eyes. "Don't mistake my willingness to negotiate for weakness," he growled. "I have the means to make this complicated for you." Mustering every ounce of courage, Alyssa responded with steely resolve. "Do what you must. I won't be bullied anymore." She turned on her heel, adrenaline flooding her veins. Robert met her halfway, slipping his arm around her in silent support as they returned to the main hall. They stayed for the conclusion of the gala, refusing to flee in defeat. As the final speech wrapped up, Alyssa and Robert slipped out a side door, leaving the glamour and the gossip behind. The confrontation had rattled her, but it also solidified her resolve. She was no longer the naive girl who cowered in Evan's shadow. She was stronger now, fueled by the knowledge that there were people, Robert, Elizabeth, Michelle, who genuinely had her back. Tension escalated in the wake of the gala. Within days, Evan's lawyers filed paperwork requesting shared custody upon the baby's birth, citing his paternal rights. Elizabeth responded immediately, constructing a counterclaim for full custody, bolstered by evidence of Evan's emotional neglect and manipulative behavior. Each court filing intensified Alyssa's worries, looming over her like a storm cloud in an otherwise clearing sky. Through it all, Robert proved a steady presence. He joined her at prenatal checkups, helped her navigate health insurance details, and made a point of simply being there, whether she needed a ride to the grocery store or a quiet companion on particularly anxious nights. One tranquil morning, Robert arrived at Alyssa's apartment, insisting she needed a break from the suffocating atmosphere. They drove to Cape Cod, stopping at a secluded beach with gentle waves lapping the shore. The sky stretched overhead, a mixture of pearly grey clouds and hints of sun. Walking barefoot, Alyssa confessed her old dreams of a picturesque life with Evan, travelling the world, raising a child in a home filled with warmth. She spoke of her guilt, how she couldn't forgive herself for not seeing Evan's true nature sooner, worried it indicated some fundamental flaw in her judgment. Robert turned to her, the sea breeze tousling his hair. "Your past doesn't define you," he said with quiet conviction. "What matters is who you choose to be now." They shared a makeshift picnic, sandwiches, fresh fruit, and the soft hush of waves for background music. Suddenly, Robert broached the subject that had hovered between them since the gala. "I can't stop thinking about a future with you, both of you," he admitted, nodding toward her belly. Her heart thudded. She'd begun to suspect the depth of his feelings, but hearing him say it aloud felt overwhelming. "Robert, she began, voice trembling. "It's not that I don't feel something for you. I'm just terrified of repeating the same pattern." Robert's gaze was steady. "Love is a risk," he acknowledged gently, "but one I want to take if you'll let me." A flutter of hope stirred in her, the first steps of a fragile dance between fear and trust. Life, however, had another curveball in store. A week later, while Alyssa was folding newly bought baby clothes, her phone rang with a somber voice on the other end. It was a doctor from a local hospital informing her that Evan had been in a serious car accident. Although he was stable, he had suffered multiple fractures and had asked for her. Alyssa's mind reeled. She felt torn by a sudden wave of worry for the man who had once claimed to love her. She told Robert, who immediately offered to drive her to the hospital. Despite her mixed emotions, anger, betrayal, the faint aftertaste of love, she felt compelled to see Evan. Something deep within insisted she needed this closure, this final confrontation with the man who had dominated her thoughts for so long. At the hospital, the antiseptic odor and fluorescent lights heightened her tension. She found Evan in a private room, bandaged and bruised, with IVs snaking out of his arms. The confident, arrogant CEO was nowhere in sight. In its place lay a vulnerable man who looked small and haunted. The moment she stepped closer, he reached out a shaky hand, tears brimming in his eyes. "I didn't know who else to call," he whispered, voice hoarse. Alyssa stood rigid, memories of their last argument swirling in her mind. She had expected anger to flare, but found herself strangely calm. Evan revealed how he had been driving recklessly after losing a critical deal that threatened to expose cracks in his empire. Overwhelmed by the possibility of failure, he'd been careless. "All my life I chased success because I thought winning was everything," he admitted, the words laced with regret. "I lost sight of what mattered, including you and our child." His apology spilled forth, raw and halting. While Alyssa remained cautious, words alone wouldn't heal the wounds he had inflicted. She couldn't help feeling a pang of empathy. She had once loved this man, and now he lay before her, broken in more ways than one. Evan's raw apology lingered in Alyssa's thoughts long after she left the hospital. She wrestled with a tumult of emotions, the anger she had harbored for months, the faint compassion she felt for a man who had lost himself to ambition, and the lingering fear that he might be manipulating her. Yet a certain relief took hold, a sense that the ghost of her past might finally be at rest. If Evan truly recognized his mistakes, perhaps there was hope for a less contentious path forward. Over the following weeks, the legal landscape shifted. Evan's attorneys unexpectedly filed an amended statement relinquishing demands for joint custody. Instead, they requested visitation rights at Alyssa's discretion, placing child support in a trust. Elizabeth reviewed the documents, noting with guarded optimism that Evan's change of heart seemed sincere. Alyssa felt an odd mixture of gratitude and sadness, remembering the dreams she once shared with him. She reluctantly agreed to the new arrangement, believing her baby deserved at least the possibility of knowing its father if he genuinely committed to change. And so the shadow of a bitter, drawn-out legal war began to recede, granting Alyssa room to breathe. Her days soon filled with finalizing the nursery, attending childbirth classes, and writing for the Historical Society. Robert became a fixture in her life, an unwavering source of comfort. He was there when she struggled to assemble the baby crib, fumbling with screws and instructions. He was there when she impulsively cried over a poignant advertisement on TV, hormones turning her emotions inside out. He even joined her on late-night grocery runs to satisfy unexpected cravings. With each shared moment, Alyssa felt herself growing closer to a kind of love she had never experienced before, one built on trust, empathy, and a genuine desire to walk side by side. Then, on a mild spring afternoon, the first contractions seized Alyssa. Her breath caught, and she clutched the edge of the kitchen counter. Robert, who happened to be over, immediately leapt into action, helping her into the car and grabbing the pre-packed hospital bag. Hours blurred into a haze of pain, determination, and relief. Robert never left her side, offering ice chips and gentle words of encouragement. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, a piercing cry filled the room. A nurse placed a tiny wailing bundle into Alyssa's trembling arms, a baby girl with a shock of dark hair. Tears flooded Alyssa's eyes as she whispered her daughter's name, Lily, struck by the instant overwhelming love that swelled her heart. Alyssa spent the next few days navigating the exhausting, glorious chaos of new motherhood. Lily's every hiccup, yawn, or squeak filled her with awe. Visits came in a gentle trickle. Michelle arrived with pastel balloons and an entire bag of newborn essentials. Evan showed up quietly, his arm in a cast, standing at a respectful distance. He seemed genuinely moved, marveling at Lily's soft cheeks and tiny fingers. Though Alyssa remained protective, she allowed him a cautious glimpse into their daughter's life, unsure if he would follow through on his promise to change. Robert, on the other hand, was a constant. He and Alyssa marveled over each new coo or facial expression Lily made. He paced the hospital corridor to soothe Lily's fussiness. Whenever Alyssa felt overwhelmed, her body sore, her emotions in disarray, Robert stepped in with quiet assurance, reminding her she wasn't alone. She realized that the love blossoming between them wasn't a fleeting infatuation, but a deep, steady connection rooted in shared dreams and compassion. Alyssa was discharged from the hospital full of cautious optimism. Evan, still recovering, followed through on establishing a formal trust fund for Lily, choosing to respect Alyssa's boundaries about visitation. Though wary, she recognized he was making an effort to transform. She couldn't predict how their relationship as co-parents would evolve, but she hoped Lily's presence might inspire Evan to pursue a more humble, genuine path. With the legal battles behind her and Lily's birth offering a fresh start, Alyssa finally felt she could catch her breath. She returned to her apartment, which now overflowed with baby supplies. Though sleepless nights blurred together, she approached each day with renewed purpose, balancing her part-time research job, her freelance writing, and Lily's constant needs tested her limits, but she discovered a well of resilience that she never knew existed. Amidst the busy joys of caring for a newborn, Robert was a patient, unwavering anchor. She noticed how tender he was with Lily, carefully supporting her head and cooing softly whenever the baby fussed. One day, Evan came for a brief visit, uncertain and subdued. Alyssa watched him hold Lily with trembling arms, noticing a trace of awe in his eyes. She silently acknowledged the complicated bond that would always exist between them, vowing that Lily's welfare would remain at the center of every decision she made. One crisp evening, about a month after Lily's birth, Robert surprised Alyssa with a quiet dinner at his stately Beacon Hill home. The brownstone's interior boasted a tasteful blend of antique wood furnishings and modern art. While Lily slept soundly in a nearby cradle, they shared a meal by the warm glow of a small fireplace. Afterward, Robert asked Alyssa to wait for a moment. He disappeared into another room and returned with a small velvet box. Kneeling before her, he opened it to reveal a delicate, timeless ring. Alyssa felt tears sting her eyes even before he spoke. "I love you, Alyssa," he began, his voice steady yet laced with emotion. "I can't imagine my life without you or Lily. Will you marry me?" Overcome by a torrent of emotion, relief, gratitude, and a love that soared beyond anything she'd known, Alyssa could only nod before whispering a tearful yes. As Robert slid the ring onto her finger, she remembered the broken girl who had once fled a penthouse with nothing but a suitcase and a wounded heart. That memory stood in stark contrast to the woman she was now, mother to a beautiful baby girl, soon to be wife to a man who valued her well-being above all else. In that moment, Alyssa's journey crystallized into something she never thought possible. The heartbreak she once endured had sharpened her resolve, teaching her how to stand her ground and demand the respect she deserved. The baby she carried in the darkest hours had brought her the brightest love. And the unexpected billionaire who appeared on an icy sidewalk turned out to be a steadfast partner who would walk with her into a hopeful future. This was not the ending she had envisioned on her wedding day with Evan, but it was a new beginning, one that promised genuine partnership, mutual respect, and a home built on the real foundations of love. Alyssa woke to the delicate peal of birdsong streaming through the open window of Robert's Beacon Hill brownstone. Sunlight skimmed across the hardwood floors, illuminating dust motes dancing in the stillness. It had been only a month since she brought Lily home from the hospital, and in that short span, her life had taken on a tender new rhythm. Mornings were spent nursing Lily in the cozy armchair by the window, marveling at her tiny fingers and bright-eyed wonder. Afternoons found her balancing freelance assignments and the part-time archiving work at the Historical Society. Evenings were reserved for Robert's gentle presence, whether he was helping her prepare dinner or reading softly to Lily until she dozed off in his arms. Now, though, the house buzzed with a new kind of energy, preparations for their wedding. Michelle Carter, triumphant in her role as unofficial wedding coordinator, had nearly every detail set in motion, from the softly lit courtyard of the Boston Public Library, where they would exchange vows, to the pastel-hued peonies she insisted Alyssa carry. Even the date was chosen with care, a warm Saturday in late spring, offering the promise of renewal and hope. Yet beneath the excitement, Alyssa sensed a fragile undercurrent of uncertainty. She recognized it in her own reflections each night before bed, when memories of her former marriage crept in uninvited. What if she was rushing things? Could her love for Robert, real and strong though it felt, truly endure the tests life might still throw at them? On an afternoon meant for finalizing flower arrangements, Michelle breezed into the townhouse, arms filled with color swatches and ribbons. Dropping them onto the dining table, she handed Alyssa a cup of chamomile tea. "My mother always says weddings turn calm people into nervous wrecks," she teased, eyeing the tiny lines of worry etched on Alyssa's face. "How are you really doing?" Alyssa sighed, trying to articulate the swirl in her chest. "I'm happy, more than I ever thought I could be," she said softly, stroking Lily's hand as the baby dozed in her bassinet nearby. "But after everything with Evan, the divorce, the stress, it's hard to believe this piece won't shatter." Her gaze dropped to the engagement ring on her finger, the light glinting across its delicate setting. Michelle gave her a reassuring squeeze on the arm. "Robert isn't Evan," she said firmly. "He's proven that time and again. It's normal to be scared, but you don't have to let fear run the show." Alyssa nodded, grateful for her friend's unwavering support. She was about to delve into table decoration talk when her phone buzzed. Her breath caught at the sight of Evan's name on the caller ID. Should I answer this?" she murmured, glancing at Michelle, who gave a delicate shrug. Stepping into the next room for privacy, Alyssa pressed the phone to her ear. Evan's voice was subdued, almost tentative. "Hi, Alyssa. I heard you're getting married soon," he began, clearing his throat. "I'm not calling to upset you. I just wanted to say I'm sincerely happy for you. After Lily was born and seeing how well you and Robert fit, I realized some things." Alyssa's heart thumped at his uncharacteristic vulnerability. "Thank you," She replied carefully, "That means a lot, and I want you to know, if you truly plan to be in Lily's life, we can work something out, slowly." A short silence followed. Then Evan sighed. "That's what I want too," he said, emotion threading through his voice. He paused as if steeling himself. "But there's something else. My board at Coleman Industries is pressing me to host a large corporate event next month, some kind of restructuring announcement. They want a public showing of unity between me and my family. They're hinting that Lily and you be present to ease investor concerns." Alyssa's anger flared. "That's not my responsibility," she said, her voice taut. "We're not props for your PR. I thought we were past this." "I'm not asking you to be," Evan said hastily. "I even told them no, but they're persistent, and I wanted to warn you in case it leaks to the press. If it does, I'll do everything in my power to shield you." He exhaled shakily. "I promise." Her throat tightened at the sincerity in his tone. "Thank you," she managed. "I appreciate the heads up, and I'm glad you're keeping your word." When the call ended, she felt equal parts relief and unease. Evan's progress seemed genuine, but his complicated world of corporate maneuvering felt too close for comfort. She wanted no part of a new media circus, especially with Lily so young and her wedding on the horizon. The next day, after carefully recounting Evan's phone call to Robert over a quick lunch, she found him surprisingly calm. "We expected some drama," he said with a wry smile. "Corporate shake-ups can be messy, especially in Evan's sphere, but I'll do whatever it takes to keep you and Lily out of the crossfire." "I know," she said, resting her head on his shoulder. A wave of gratitude washed over her. His steady support was a salve against the fears that tried to gnaw at her resolve. As the wedding day drew closer, the swirl of last-minute details threatened to overwhelm Alyssa's every waking moment. Yet each time doubt flickered, she thought of Robert's unwavering presence, the gentle weight of Lily in her arms, and Michelle's steadfast encouragement. She reminded herself that joy, too, was a possibility, that her new beginning deserved its moment to shine untarnished. Little did she realize, a final test of her conviction awaited, a test that would come from an unexpected corner of her life. For now, however, the world felt bathed in sunlight, and Alyssa found hope blooming steadily in her chest. The future was hers to embrace, if only she dared believe in it. Thank you for joining us on Alyssa's unforgettable journey through heartbreak, resilience, and the power of new beginnings. From the moment she signed those divorce papers to the triumphant day she found lasting love with Robert, Alyssa's story reminds us that even the darkest trials can lead to the brightest dawn. In facing betrayal and legal battles, she discovered that true strength lies in holding on to hope, fighting for what matters, and never losing sight of her self-worth. Her unexpected alliance with Robert not only helped her stand against the ghosts of her past, but also showed that a compassionate, genuine heart can mend even the deepest wounds. If Alyssa's story resonated with you, if it inspired, moved, or gave you courage, please like this video, share it with someone who might need to hear it, and subscribe to our channel for more heart-stirring stories. Thank you for watching.